Oh, hello. Good evening. It's Monday night, and it is a weird weather Monday night. And so I'm glad we're inside. Nice and toasty in here with the bizarre storms going across the East Coast right now. So we're here to talk to you about some cool stuff, comics and craft and all the fun things. And with me tonight is a really awesome special guest. I'm so excited for tonight's conversation. Jesse Lonergan, welcome to the show. How are you, my man?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, dude. I've
Um,
uh I've been a fan for a surprising while, and it's your
yeah,
stuff. Drome is awesome. It was beyond epic.
um,
You had a cool piece in what was it? The New Gods, the DC's New
yeah,
Gods as
yeah.
well.
I did
Um,
a
I
full
think I
page.
one of the first books I read from you was Man's Best. And
Okay. Yeah.
that was just
Um,
such a fun, like it reminded me of We Three from Grant Morrison and
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and whatnot.
Um,
And it was such a good eye-catching book. Where did that come from?
thanks.
Let's talk about Man's Best real fast.
That came about like the whole idea was porn sex idea. Like he had pitched it to Boom, and actually Eric Harborn reached out to me and asked if I would be interested. I think he had seen me drawing sort of more like my like cutesy style stuff. Like and he thought like, oh, he might be a good fit to draw ad dogs and cats with like mech suits in space. And it was a lot of fun. Like the premise is just a lot of fun of like these service pets sort of going to find their people through these alien worlds, and the possibility of drawing all these different environments. And Pornsek's a great writer, like, and so it was a good opportunity to work with him. I mean, I met him through the project. We've kept in touch since. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. Um,
And you go from books like that to like Drome and whatnot. Like your
yeah,
paneling,
yeah,
just it stands out so much. I think that's what makes you a really remarkable artist is that you kind of it's weird how like you could tell you think outside the box in a lot of ways with the way you panel, but you're also like it's so simplified. It's circles and
very inside
squares
the
and
box at the same
yeah,
time.
like it's just
Like a lot of boxes. Yeah, I think I was very fortunate in like I came to a lot of people's attention with Hedra, which was this very densely paneled one shot, this wordless densely paneled one shot from Image, and I think because of that, like I'm sort of allowed to do it. Like um, people like, oh, there's probably going to be 14, 15, 16 panels on a page, and I think that's very fortunate that I've sort of been able to lean into it, and it's it's sort of this mix of where my interests lie, like in terms of like the medium, and then like I think this sort of deeply idiosyncratic potential issues I have of like control and order, and like this is the way things should be. And like to the degree where like I'll look at comics by like brilliant artists, and I'll be like, well, why aren't there panels? Like, why aren't these panels the same size? Like they're so close in size that I think they like it bothers me that they are not the same size. Like it'll just be like, why? Like it's like they should be bigger. One of them should be much bigger, or one of them should be the exact same size, or they should be distinct. Like I like that relationship. I don't know what's going on in my brain where I'm like, it's supposed to be this way. So I get this sort of like, this sort of obsessive sort of quality, but then also like that I don't know that I can help. But then also I feel like there's like my interest in like the medium of comics and how they work, and sort of like I I kind of think the panel relationships are like kind of one of the most fundamental aspects of comics. And so like having more of them on a page is like bringing more of the medium out. Like if it's just two, that's like minimal medium, and then you get more and more and sort of builds on top of itself. um
that's a fun mindset to have too. I kind of going back to what you're saying about like going looking at great artists and whatnot, when you look at early Kirby and early,
Mhm.
like, even, early Detective Comics and whatnot, you're right. It's like 9 panels on the page, 11 panels, 14 sometimes, but like
Yeah.
one's like a rectangle and then it's like a square and then it's like a
Oh,
small
yeah,
one and then it
and then
chips
there's
you out.
ones, especially if you're looking at, like, golden age stuff, there'll be
Yeah.
ones that, like, it's almost like it's like Pennsylvania, where, like, Pennsylvania is kind of this, sorry to get geographic, but, like, this square state with then this, like, little part at the end that sticks up.
Yeah.
Like, and there'll be panels that are like that where it's, like, almost square and then just, like, no, a little
Little
well,
boop.
I don't know why it happened, like, it was just like, "Oh, we needed that little part up." But, yeah, it's very like a much sort of, I feel like, looser attitude. I don't, part of it, I think, with the golden age stuff, one of the kind of beauties of all the golden age comics is I think those people are working fast. Like,
Yeah.
like there are certainly not the back and forth that happen now within the industry with like writers and editors talking. I think it's like, get these pages done. Like, why did you do that? It's like, doesn't matter. It's done. It's out. It's like, and that's why you get like some of the, the really like just pure weirdness characters. Like Stardust is
Oh,
probably like the most like
uh,
famous example of like just madness on paper. But there are so many other ones, like these like obscure characters where it's like, what is the story? Like this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But
yeah.
I think they're just like going so fast, and I think a lot of good stuff comes out of working that way. A lot of bad stuff too, but like you get like truly weird things.
Yeah, you get the first thought on a lot of stuff sometimes, and you're
Yeah,
just like,
yeah,
you really didn't like know where this was going when you started this, and you just found a way
yeah,
to
oh,
make it
yeah,
work, or like make that
yeah,
villain
yeah,
work
and
somehow. Like even just rock
yeah,
monsters and whatnot, and giving them abilities, and you're just like, why are they doing that now? But sure, we're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
roll with it
There's
because it's comics.
Yeah, I kind of, I think I like that, and creatively I like that too, of like sort of being like, well, I'm not, I like this idea, we'll see where it goes, and being like open enough to do that. Like I feel like, especially mainstream comics now, like where there's so much canon, and like the what powers the Hulk has, I think have been pretty well covered, and
Yeah.
like, and there's sort of something more exciting in like the very beginning, where it's like, well, what can the Hulk do? Where you like, you don't really know, and I sort of, I like it that I feel there's sort of a little magic in like, I feel like also like early Star Wars, it's like, well, how strong is Yoda? Like, it's like he can lift up an X-wing. Like, can he lift up more? It's like we never really know that limit. And I feel that's sort of an unfortunate thing with all the the history and like observance of all the history in comics, where it's, Cyclops is pretty set in his powers. Like, this is what he can do, this is what he cannot do.
Is that kind of what draws you to a lot of independent work too? Is like, you're talking about freedom with paneling and everything, but like freedom from just continuity and having to catch up to some of that and
Yeah,
having to know that whole history to know what's right.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, like I'm turning down offers from Marvel or DC. But I think I like, yeah, that sort of like possibility that exists, sort of with indie things or with things that are new, of, you know, you don't have to adhere too much to what's come before. Like you have to adhere what you personally have like previously done.
Yeah,
Which, like, I feel like, the longer you work on a comic, sort of the more rules you make for yourself, within the comic. So like Man's Best, like it started sort of one thing, and then, okay, this becomes sort of, this is how I draw this is how I draw that, and as it goes on, there's more and more things that I've like sort of defined, um,
that's very true
which
too.
is, yeah, which is also something I'll like rebel against. I find personally, where I'll just be like, with something like Drome, where I was working on it for so long, like 4 years, 5 years. It was just like I want to draw something else, but it's like,
Yeah.
but this is how I draw this book. Like it's is not going to change now, especially as it goes on, and like the last 50 pages, it's like there's no new stuff coming. Like all the rules have been established. Um,
Do you think that kinda keeps you in a certain mindset of your skill? Like, being aware of how your skill is growing in different directions when you're doing a book that long?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel with Drome, and for me, it's very visible. Like because it sort of coincides with like me kind of becoming a professional comic book artist as well, where drawing comic books became my full time job, and the amount of just like when you're drawing all day, like when that's your job, it changes from like drawing like a few hours a day. So like drawing like no, the majority of my day is spent drawing, and like your skill just changes. You get better even if you're not even like practicing or trying. You're drawing so much, you get better. So I can see this sort of like visual movement from like the earliest pages to the end of uh like, oh, I'm much better at this now, and it's nothing like, I don't think it's anything huge. It's just like, oh, I'm better at rendering a figure than I was at the beginning. I also feel like tools changed. Like I
Hmm.
switched over, like so that the tools I was using at the beginning, I'd grown dissatisfied with, and like I'm using different tools at the end. And I don't think, to me it's visible. I don't know to anyone else if it's like they can be like, oh, okay, those pages are drawn like that, and these pages are drawn with this tool.
This was clearly a nib, and this just switched over to a brush, and
It's
he didn't
not.
even
It's
try
not.
like
No. It's not that big of a change. Like I switched brush pens, so there's not actually that much difference in the quality of that. But I was using sort of the vinyl tip like zebra brush pens,
Oh,
which aren't
okay.
really. I don't know why they call them brush pens. They just have a flexible tip. And I use those a lot at the beginning, and I just they the balance of the line weights is so dorky. Like I find with thinking about line weights, every time you switch a tool, the line weights, they don't always balance.
Yeah.
And because I'm worried about the size and shape of the panels and the relationship to each other, like clearly I'm also like worried about like this line weight is too fine for this line weight. And there's no balance. And so I sort of found if I switch over to basically using a brush pen for everything, then the line weight, no matter how fine, is pretty consistent. And
Ah.
so that was like a switch made, I don't know, probably around page 75 or so, where it's almost all brush pen after that, with occasional like a Micron O1. Um,
Oh, shoot, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's all I love learning about tools and stuff like that, especially as I learn to,
yeah.
like, draw and progress them with my drawings and whatnot, especially with the paneling. I was gonna ask you about that, like, going back to your paneling,
Mhm.
do you map out? Are you very mathematical on how the spacing is? Or are you, like, getting to the point where you kinda bullseye, like, where your squares are landing and if they're the same size and shape and whatnot?
Oh, I measure everything out.
You measure everything?
Yeah, it's like the. I think of it's just the start of every page is me like measuring everything out and sort of putting it on this pretty rigid grid. Even if it's not, there I use it differently and I change it, but it's always measured out. And yeah, I guess I think I've done it enough where it's something I do pretty quickly. Um, but Yeah, it's very much measured out, very mathematically focused. And I think for me, it's also sort of a way of ducking the blank page like
Yeah.
problem of
Mhm.
well, it's like, well, I'm going to start off drawing all these lines like with my ruler and like measuring it out and putting all these marks and like lining everything up, and it's like it's not a blank page anymore. And sort of like I feel it's like it sort of takes a little bit of like the fear out of
Yeah.
the way. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
the best part about it, is just getting something on there, and that was, like, a trick I learned from listening to podcasts with, like, Grant Morrison, how he would I think he
mm,
would, like, send scripts to Shelley Bond, and it would just say page, like, 11, and there'd be nothing there, but it would just have that notated there, so he's when he gets to it, it was like, "Oh, this isn't a blank page." And doing that with your
Mhm.
art is just it helps so much because then you're having to you go from one giant page and then you're just microing
Yeah.
everything out. And that starts to become anxiety as you go through each micro phase behind that too. Like, and
Yeah.
that's where it hits me too. I do a bunch of like one page stories on the little book I'm
Mhm.
working on right now. So I do like 30 something panels, 20 something panels on a page. And that is where I'm just like, okay, I'm on my 12th panel. Like I just need to get through the anxiety and just thumbnail this out and just get scribbles on there. And it just helps you
Yeah.
breathe a bit more. Do you blue line or do
Mhm.
you just go with like regular black and like lead?
Yeah, right now I use sort of blue and red.
Mhm.
Uh, Generally, I'll use it doesn't really matter which one, like, one for, like, the panel borders, and then the sort of figures and stuff that's in the panel, I'll use a different color just to sort of distinguish them. And if things get really complicated, I'll start going back and forth. Like, if, I'm drawing something like a crowd scene or something where it's like, oh, it's getting messy and I can't tell. I'll just switch colors so I know more like foreground, background,
Makes
and
sense.
occasionally, if perspective gets complicated, I'll do another color as well for like perspective lines or something, just to sort of keep them straight. Um,
Ah. Dude, I gotta try that out more, honestly, because I have these, of my friend Saboteur Comics sent me these cool pencils, and one end is blue and one end is red, so I just
mhm.
alternating the, like, dual lightsabering them is pretty cool to find
Yeah,
different
yeah.
spots like that. But yeah, I think when I see you in May, I'll show you them as well. I forgot we're gonna hang
Okay.
out in May as well for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
Well, free comic book day. Yeah.
that's a fun thing. How do you know or how did you get in contact with Eric from 4 Color Fancies?
I think he reached out to me probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, about doing a sketch cover for
Oh,
their
cool.
fundraiser, their literacy fundraiser.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think, and then he's where is he? He's usually at Heroes, I think.
Mhm.
I think I've seen him there. I've seen him in Baltimore. I've seen him in New York as well. So just sort of a person I've no, sort of met through the industry,
Ah.
and sort of nice, friendly guy who's, so yeah, he reached out to me this year about doing it. And also, I didn't realize how close it was. For some reason, I think Virginia, and I'm like, oh, that's far away, but it's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Well, I think of that with, like, Pennsylvania too, because I mean, it's like the Texas of the North, you know what I mean? It's just the largest state up here for no reason. And it takes half a day to get from one side to another. Like, for example, in Texas, I visited my girlfriend's family 2 weeks ago. She was in
Yeah,
Fort Worth, and we were like, "Oh, why don't" they were like, "Why don't you go visit Brandon's family too?" I'm like, "That's 10 hours away to hit El Paso.
yeah.
There's no way we're doing that." Like, it's such a
I feel
vast
like
immensity.
Northeast people get spoiled. Like what we think of as like a huge distance. Like, to me, Pittsburgh is incredibly far away, and it's really like 4 hours
Yeah,
away.
exactly.
Like, and like New York is too. Like Baltimore's like it's just this sort of spoiled. Like, everything should be close. And
Yeah.
then you go out to like Texas, or like, like, if you're in Denver, like, what's the next town over from Denver? Like, the next city, it's
Oh,
like supposed to be like 10 hours away. Whatever it is, I don't
yeah.
even know. Like,
I can't even think of anything.
um,
I've toured through there, but it's just like there's really nothing. There's
yeah,
what
like,
I can't even, my geography's off. I was like, what's above that? But no, yeah, everything that around there, Utah and all that. I guess Salt Lake City is like the
I
closest thing
guess
that's
so.
worth
Is
a
that the
damn.
closest
Like,
to
I
Denver? I
guess
don't think it's that close. Like,
like
and it's so like
the
I
people in the
feel like
chat let us know how bad our geography is on that. Like, please, like,
no, it's like I grew up in Vermont, and like, it's like, I think where I lived, it was maybe 6 hours to New York, and like 4 hours to Boston, maybe 3 hours to Boston, but also like 2 hours to Montreal. Like,
oh,
it just was like it's not nothing's that far away, really. Um,
you kind of bounced around on your upbringing too, from what I read in the
yeah,
back of Drome and whatnot. Where you went
yeah.
from what Vermont to like Saudi Arabia or something like that. Did you not?
No, I was my parents lived in Saudi Arabia, and then they came to the US. I was born basically in
Mm.
California, and then grew up in Saudi Arabia till I was 5,
Oh
um,
wow.
and then to Vermont. So, I was 5, so like pretty young, like, not. And I think the way Saudi Arabia was, at least at that time, with foreigners. It's not like I was in Saudi culture. It
Yeah,
was like a sort of a compound with mostly, Americans or Europeans and stuff. Um, but a desert still, like,
yeah.
seeing camels and stuff like that, as opposed to um, Vermont, which is very different.
Did any of that, like, even in long term span, like, maybe some part of your family or anything kind of influence some of your artistic tastes too? Like, I feel the way you've developed like landscapes, for example, like in
Mm.
Drome, I mean, very vast, very epic. And it
Yeah.
does feel very like Eastern in a big way. So even with
Mm.
like the gods and formations, very almost like Hinduish in that sense of just like mighty and
Yeah.
just like different. I think of another Grant Morrison thing, but like 18 Days by Grant Morrison. I thought like it
Mhm.
kind of reminds me a lot of that with your background.
Yeah, maybe it's sort of hard to pin down
Indirect in
with
that
stuff like
sense.
that. Like, yeah, but just like the like it's sort of just I think sort of growing up with like a different landscape in your mind, um, like and sort of I think of like city kids not knowing where milk comes from. Like city kids don't know that it comes from cows, but I like in Vermont, like there's a dairy farm like down the road, so it's like there was never a mystery of where milk came from, and sort of like having this awareness of other places,
Mhm.
like, oh, having been in Saudi Arabia, and in traveling around there, like I think I don't know. It's sort of like, yeah, there's a desert in your head. Like you're sort of aware of what a desert looks like, and these the sand dunes and stuff. And I don't know how like literally it comes into my head, but maybe.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it comes with traveling too, I guess. I mean, being a
Yeah,
creator in general, bouncing around and just absorbing whatever you can, not realizing it, whatever you may be absorbing. And it's cool that you're from
yeah.
Vermont, like in Vermont, because that's such a like, I mean, it's a crazy place when you think about it in the retrospect of, like, the United States being, like, the most northern north up there. Um, are you a
I
fan of the
mean,
snow? Are you a fan of, like, that cold weather and whatnot?
I don't mind the snow. We were talking before about winter, and every winter I ask myself, like, why do I live in a cold place? Like, there are places that are nice right now. But I really, more than that, I don't like the heat. Like, like even Philadelphia for me is like too hot in the summertime. So I think like Vermont's sort of, yeah, definitely feels like my home still, even though I haven't lived there in a long time. Um, and yeah, it is sort of a weird place to grow up, just because it's so small. Like, it's there's no real city in Vermont. Like the biggest city in Vermont is probably Burlington, which is maybe 50,000, maybe
Oh,
60,000
wow.
people. Like, debatable whether that's a city. But that's like the big city. But most of it's like small towns, and they're very, very rural. Um, which is, like there it's sort of like you grow up and you're like, oh, this is just normal. But then like meeting people, it's like, oh yeah, I grew up in the smallest town, like, of everybody in this room, generally. Like, like my hometown was about 1,000 people. Um, and kind of that thing where like, oh, everybody knows. You might not, as a kid, you might not know who they are, but they definitely know who you are, and they know
Mhm.
who your parents, like they know your mom. Like, and
Yeah.
if I can remember like throwing throwing snowballs at cars, and like getting caught and getting my mom told. Like, like they knew exactly who to tell. Like, your son was in the street with Jonah throwing snowballs at cars. Like, and that's like a very different experience than most people, I think. Um,
I get that. I mean, El Paso was not it's not necessarily a large city like when you think of like Austin or Dallas in terms of Texas,
mhm.
but it was large enough to be bigger than like a small town, but it was
Yeah.
small enough where everybody still knew each other. I mean, I remember
Mm.
being in like bands and playing in like, garages, or we would rent
Mhm.
like a storage shed and try to practice out of a storage shed or something and get the cops called on
Yeah.
us. And multiple times cops would let us go because they'd be like, Blocksdorf, did your grandfather a coach? And I was like, yeah, yeah, he was Irvin and Parkland. He's just like, tell them blah 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 misses him, and I'll let you guys
Yeah.
off for free. And my grandpa coached for like 10 years, and it seemed like every time that
And
something
people still
happened,
remembered.
still
That's
knew him. And I
cool.
was just like, this town is tiny. How is this possible?
Yeah.
Like, how do you all know my grandpa? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Um,
Um, so with your kind of entry into comics, it's been real interesting because like the books you've produced, the books you've been a part of, they go in like these wild directions, and the way you've always done your art has always been real interesting as well. What were some of your main influences that you kind of dove into? Like I see a lot of Mobius, I see a lot of
yeah.
kind of European comics and whatnot in there. But what
Yeah.
what what kind of really hit you?
I think like yeah, I started getting into drawing comics sort of in high school, and it was like the early image stuff was like um, the sort of the thing that got me really excited, like Todd McFarlane, and just sort of it was growing up in Vermont, like the comic book shop was not nearby, and so like like I think it's sort of a frustration probably for anyone in the industry that comics are sort of hidden, and you have to find these specific stores that sell them, which in my case was like the town like 20 miles away, like but sort of like I had this idea of comics, and then like finding these image books that looked nothing like what I had thought comics looked like, and just like like these crazy detailed drawings and all these lines and stuff, and like the Liefeld like foreheads with like and all the veins on the like this sort of like really over the top, and I think that's what got me into comics, and I think that was sort of a big early influence, and like people I tried to draw like when I was first starting. Um, but I think then narratively I moved more in towards like the indie stuff. I guess pretty quickly, like within high school, I started getting into like Hate and Eight Ball and sort
Oh,
of more like weirder stuff, because I think Spawn's fine, but like it's not like a story that really like spoke to me,
I feel
like
that.
and the hate was like sort of the life I wanted to live when I was in high school. It was like, oh, these cool people in Seattle. And I feel like I read Hate again later when I was like 26. It was like, oh, these aren't cool people. Like, I totally misunderstood this comic book. Like, these guys are nowhere near as awesome as I thought they were. Yeah, and then in the indie stuff, sort of Chris Ware at the same time, sort of late high school, beginning of college. The like sort of that like more indie stuff, um, and I think sort of like I kind of the wanted to make comics of that sort of indie ilk, which is, and I don't know if it's if it's within that indie scene or just within my head, of like there's indie comics and there's mainstream comics, and they are very different, and the stuff Todd McFarlane does, it's like that's like 1980s hair metal guitar solos, and
Yeah.
I like punk now, and I there are not going to be any guitar solos in my art. Like, it's going to be like the art is in the service of the story. It's like this almost like this anti-flash sort of thing. And I feel like that was like this nasty virus in my brain for like a long time of like don't show off. And then I don't know, some reason in my like 30s it like hit me. I was like, no, like guitar solos are cool. Like, like you can, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right.
Like you can just sort of like, do your weirdo comics that you don't know where they'll find a home, but also like sort of, you know, kind of like be flashy with your art and stuff. And like when I say flashy, it's like you can draw attention to itself, and like the way I think I use panels is sort of drawing attention to panels, and stuff, and sort of this idea that the sort of the art doesn't need to be that hidden. And I think maybe along that time is sort of like, I don't know, like Jack Kirby, like clicking in my head of like, oh, I get what's going on now, like in this art, which is, I feel like sounds dumb to be like, I didn't get it before, but he was definitely like an artist, like I had to come around on, and it was just like I wasn't seeing it, and then all of a sudden I saw it. It's like, oh, it's just this like pure energy and like this like force of creativity, and sometimes with no editing, which like I think it could use, but like
In
that
that churn, man,
that's
just trying to get them
yeah,
out.
it's just it's going so fast and so many ideas coming out, and like, you know, you'll read like a New God story, be like, I think every 3 pages could be an issue. Like there's so many ideas that just came out. Like I can't keep up. But that, and like, so like Kirby, and then also like Mobius, and sort of I guess sort of almost like a change in like how I read comics as well. Sort of like I think like with Mobius, um, like you can, I feel like if you read Arzak and you just read the story, like you know, if you just think about the story, which is guy on a flying thing sees like the back of a naked woman, but then a monster is there. He takes the monster away, comes back, turns out the naked woman is ugly. Like that is roughly like the story, and that's not a very good story. Like,
Yeah.
but and I'm not gonna defend that story at all, but like to look at like a Mobius comic and miss the art, like because you're like, oh, the story is so dumb. It's like, yeah, but look at this hatching, look at this rendering. It's like, oh, there's this other way of like reading a comic that doesn't necessarily isn't so narrative focused. It's like, no, it's these sequences of images, and like I feel like comics have this quality of reading where it's the amount of like care that Mobius puts into putting those lines on the paper is part of the reading process. Like
Yeah.
that comes through to you. And the same thing with like Kirby, where it's like it's the way he's putting those lines down and the energy that's going down, and like with, you know, one of his inkers like Royer or something, like it's that's part of the reading, and that's part of the enjoyment, is like seeing that. And that, I feel like it feels to me sometimes in our culture right now, or media, is like story, 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 and it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be that much about the story. Like a good story is great, but like I'll love Arzak forever because it's like, look at the way it's drawn. Like it's such a, like the colors and the textures he creates, it's just amazing. Um, and so I think that thinking about reading comics more with that, where like sort of I don't I don't know that necessarily I worry that people need to understand what I'm doing, but just the fact that I'm taking the care to do it, like, will come through to people, and like that quality of artwork, is something that sort of I it took me a while to enter into my head, and then, you know, sort of since then I sort of kind of run with it.
No, it's so sick though. That makes a lot of sense too, because when you think a lot about, especially, I mean, I guess it depends where you come out into comics too. Are you coming at it as an artist or a writer? And so
Mhm.
for the writer perspective, it transforms into pure words and story, and that's the only
Mhm,
way they can
mhm.
get a point across. And where like if you try to tell a simplified story, it's like you're kind of undercutting it, you know, you're not doing something wild or bombastic enough. And with like an
Mhm.
artist being able to take on that storytelling aspect, they can do something as simple as like, you know, finding a woman to taking the monster and
Yeah,
like taking, you know, all
yeah,
that type of
yeah,
stuff. Like
very
you
simple
could,
story.
yeah, you could do that and make it enriching and make it like dense
Mhm.
and like, you know, entertaining, and still like it takes your mind from how goofy it is overall, because
Yeah,
you're captivated by the craft itself. So inherently, like the craft of the storytelling through the sequential pages is actually, you know, making up for the the actual words that are
Yeah,
happening
and
in it.
I think there's a balance that can be, like, achieved where, like, yeah, you can go more writerly and you can go more into, like, verbal textual ideas, which when I think of, like, I don't know, like Garth Ennis Hellblazer, it's like there's a lot of talking, a lot of talking,
A lot,
and,
yeah.
like, it's like these are situations where, like, the art really is sort of like backseat, like,
Mhm.
like it's it wouldn't it wouldn't make it any better for the art to be going nuts.
Right.
Like Mobius on, like, a Hellblazer conversation by Garth Ennis, it's like,
No,
what a waste. Like it's like there so it's like this balance, and I think that's, like, sort of why, like, Steve Dillon was such, like, a good match for Ennis, was because, and eh, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Steve Dillon's
no, no.
skill, like, his skills were there, but, like, he sort of he knew, I feel like, when working with, like, Garth Ennis, that it's like, okay, my job is to be super consistent and to have this thing, so, like, that this story and this dialogue and all these things sort of flow, and yeah, so it's this balance, I feel,
Yeah.
but, like, me working on my own, like, I'm definitely artist first, I feel, and so I'll go that direction, more than I'll go, like, a writerly direction.
Which, I mean, in your favor has totally won, and it totally worked. So it's great.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about that aspect, when we're talking about panels and whatnot, the way you break up certain, it'll be like one full image that has now been broken
Mhm.
up into, like, 40 panels or something. And so are you
Yeah.
are you thinking
Uh,
about the pacing that someone's going through, like in a traditional readership, or are you thinking about like how it is unveiled when you turn the page?
um, I think sort of both. I think, like, of sort of, I think about, like, the whole page and, like, how the whole page sort of will look at a glance, but then also, like, how it will move and be read, and how, yeah, I definitely think about, like, the pacing and sort of the speed of it. Um, like it's sort of, I think when you look at sort of some of those, like, 1960s Marvel comics where it's really just all 6 panels, I feel the pacing is kinda, like, minimal, it's just like, well, this panel, then this panel, then this panel, then this panel, and because they're all sort of roughly the same size, one doesn't have much more weight, then they'll blow out into a splash, or, a little bit bigger, but not, like, that much, and I feel like with mine, I sort of think of, you know, pacing and sort of space, and, like, okay, like, big panel, small panel, like, this sort of variation that you can get, and sort of how, like, if and because it's set up on a grid, I can be like, well, this is like 25 square panel, and these are, like, little 2 panels underneath, and it's like creates this sort of potential pacing, or, like, importance, or this hierarchy on the page. So I'll think about those sorts of things, and I'll think about, you know what will make it read fast, what might make it read slow, or something like that. um, yeah, all of those, but I like the idea that you can sort of look at a page and maybe appreciate it, and then hopefully, like, look a little closer and go inside and maybe see a little bit more, like there's sort of like a two-step process.
I was gonna say you kind of get that feeling of both in that sense too, because you could see the unveiling right when you turn the page, and then you
Hmm.
kind of like seriously like break down each, and you could go by like rows. That's what's fun about your books too, without putting so many words on the page all the time. You could literally
Hmm.
just study the art and go by
Yeah.
rows or just every panel by hand and see how it all takes shape, and kind of like play with like how you read it too. And that's always a
Hmm.
lot of fun, and
Yeah.
just like seeing how the images
Yeah.
shape and come together, especially when you do like the random circle, like, halfway down the page and whatnot, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it breaks it apart, but
Yeah.
it gets your brain to kinda think in different ways, and it's very
Yeah.
trippy, which is enjoyable when you're going
Yeah.
somewhere, like, on reading your books. Um,
Yeah.
Where did
Yeah,
some of that like experimentation come from? Like, where did the paneling? Where did you first see paneling like that? That you're like, I want to break that rule and just play with it a lot.
um, I think Chris Ware like was probably the first like really densely paneled sort of thing, and like really his sort of earlier stuff, like the pre sort of Jimmy Corrigan stuff. That there was
Mm,
Quibi Mouse, and then there's like a big red book I think you can still get that's just called Acme Novelty Library that has like these sort of one page things that are sort of I think very like break up the page and make them work in different ways. Um, and so that was probably where I like first saw that kind of thinking, and then you sort of a lot of like the like Little Nemo and Slumberland. If you go back to like sort of like these big when they full page newspaper cartoons, which they don't do anymore. Like like Gasoline Alley had it too. Even Bill Watterson's pages, like when he got like creative reign over the Sunday pages, his pages started being very different, and I think he was sort of influenced by like Crazy Cat, and sort of I think looking at those sort of started planting the ideas in sort of my head, um, and then sometimes I think also it's looking. I feel like there's sometimes like comics can be sort of hidden, like you might not notice it, um or it could be something like basic, like Spider-Man I think will do it a lot, where it's like he exists, like it's a panel but he's in it 5 times or something, or the
mm,
Flash,
yeah.
like and sort of taking those ideas and sort of like stretching them a little bit, or you might have a movement across like 2 panels, but I'm like, oh, let's make it more obvious.
Yeah.
Let's stretch it out, because there's things sometimes where there's a like where I almost feel like it disappears. Like there's a Watchmen page. It's really early on where uh, the comedian's being thrown at the building,
Yeah.
and Watchmen is this like locked in 9 panel grid that never changes, but like him falling down, like the panels where he is falling are like they're in perspective with each other,
Yeah.
and it's but I think because it's Watchmen and the way it's drawn, it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to see that
That
it's
connection
all the
in
same.
throughout it.
Like you don't really see that connection because one, I think sort of once you start putting a lot of words on, it really creates like the sort of left to right reading, and it's hard to break from that. I
Yeah.
think it's like training your mind, and so you're not going to see this like counter movement that's going on the page, and sort of I feel like there's a lot of things like that that I see in sort of comics that I'm like, I like that idea, but I don't want people to miss it. like
Yeah.
I'm like I want people to see that these panels are all of the same perspective point or something like that.
That Watchmen one, I actually didn't notice that until like 6 months ago because I was reading that Chip Kid watching the Watchmen. It's like the oversized thing
Oh,
with it's
okay.
just Dave Gibbons art with his thumbnails and all that type of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And seeing it spread out, I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant." I was like, "I wonder how many." It's weird when you look at Watchmen because there's so many things you pick up like artistically
Yeah,
every time you read it and little nods and
yeah,
whatnot. I'm like, Dave was just insane when he did that. Like that was
yeah. That Watchmen is one of those books where there's so much going on in it, like, and Dave Gibbons is one of those artists too, where I think like where it's like no flash, like like it's very like consistent more
yeah.
than anything else, and I think sometimes because of that, you can sort of miss the things he's doing. Um,
Your eye just gets trained. It feels like you get used to it, and you're just, like, reading
yeah,
through it because it all just feels like, "Oh, I got the vision," and it's the
right, yeah,
storytelling in that is so, like, in your face where you could you read it and process that world so well in your head, you could kind of
yeah,
float through it, and, there not it's not like on the level of what we were saying with Hellblazer with Steve Dillon, like, it's still very
Mhm.
catching and the art carries a lot of the
Mm.
weight as well, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
writing really does overpower some of the art in most of that book,
yeah,
and that's
I
another
think so.
imbalancing thing on that one too. That's actually a great
Yeah.
point out.
Yeah, I think, like, with art, like, it can be I think sort of one of the challenges I feel sort of as an artist is sort of not letting the reader get used to it. Where like, because I just I've felt it in myself, like where I'll be reading something and like the first 50 pages, I'll be really looking at the art and appreciating it, and like stopping and looking. But then maybe the last, like if it's a graphic novel, maybe the last 50 pages, it's like I'm not looking at all. Like I'm just sort of buzzing through, and those pages are just not getting the attention. And that I think it's like I don't think maybe it's my feeling as a reader, but I don't think I'm strange in reading that way.
No.
And so I feel like as an artist, I have to like do something to make that not happen. Like so like there has to be something. I think that I sort of think like the US single issue of 22 pages is like the perfect length for like, no, you will appreciate the art at this length. And like
That's
once
true.
you start getting over like 40, 50, it's like the art's going to start like losing its luster. But like what can you do later that keeps people checking out what's going on in the art? Because like we're spending so much time on the art. Like it's far and away the most time consuming part, and like why are we spending so much time?
We're just, like, zipping
if
by
someone's not going to
everything.
notice it, like for someone just to flip the page.
I think that's the hardest part about comics too, because, even as, like, I don't know, when I was an early comics reader, I wasn't paying a lot of
Mhm,
attention to the art. I admired the art, and I was just like, "This is
mhm.
cool. I'll never be able to do this, but I'm a writer, so I'm gonna pay extra attention to the writing and, like, just let the art do what it needs to be." And then when I started writing
Mhm.
comics, I realized, like, okay, so writing's hard. I'm gonna lean a lot on my artist. I'm gonna give, like, some, like I'm gonna have I feel like I'll show you some stuff, and I feel like there's some, like, good balance between the art and the words on what I try to
Mhm.
do to convey to make my job easy as a writer, but also make the art stand out. And now that I've been drawing for a couple years, I'm reading less and I'm watching the art more. So again,
Yeah,
I guess going back to that evolution, what you're talking about with, figuring out like, am I going to do a solo? Is it going to be punk? Is it going to, solos are cool
yeah,
now, but
yeah,
it's one of those
yeah,
things where art wasn't the thing. And then I was like, oh, maybe the art's the thing. And now art is just the thing. And I just kind of,
yeah,
I've been trying to
yeah.
like go back and look at early like Kirby Stan Lee stuff and like, the Ditko Stan Lee stuff. And like I really just stray away from the script because I feel like I'm getting a better story through
Yeah.
the visuals through that.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like, I think the there's definitely some balancing going on. Like, I find like Fantastic Four, like Lee Kirby, Fantastic Four, easier to read maybe than like Fourth World stuff. Like reading,
Yeah.
just on a reading level, I'm like, okay, I'm following this stuff. While Fourth World, I might get a little confused or lost. While the art though in Fourth World, I appreciate more. I think personally,
Mm.
I'm just like that's like the era of Kirby that I think I like the best. Um, yeah, it's sort of I feel sometimes like like comics, it's that it's such a visual medium, like that the once you start working it, I feel like the art just because it's the volume of the page is art. It's hard for it not to become dominant. And then I think also sort of with like story, I think stories and like writing is this sort of like I don't know, it's like it's hard to I feel like we as a culture want to quantify everything. And it's like, well, I wrote like 7 pages, like it's like that's a quantity and that's good. And it's like, yeah, but a good story it doesn't have pages. Like it's you can have a good story that's very, very simple,
Yeah.
but like someone has to come up with that good story. and have that idea, like, like Most Dangerous Game or something. So I'm trying to think of something or The
Yeah.
Lottery, like by like those are not complicated stories. They're also very short stories, but like they have a powerful impact just in their like narrative thrust, like
Yeah.
and we want to quantify and be like, oh well, he wrote like 50 pages. It's like you don't need to do that. Like that. Those two stories like trump a lot of pages of other stuff,
Yeah.
and sort of like, but I feel it's like hard to quantify. Like, oh, did you work hard? Like,
Yeah.
like how hard did you work
Uh,
on the Most Dangerous Game? Like, it's like it doesn't matter to me. It's just a good story and it works. And it's like, like, and I think it's a good story to the point where it's like I feel like any TV show can do it now, and it's like,
mhm.
oh, they're doing the Most Dangerous Game because whoever, I don't even know who wrote it. Like
I forget. Yeah.
that was like a great idea, and
Mhm.
like how do you measure a great idea? And so like I feel that's like the trick of writing is like the good idea and like the satisfying ending and stuff. But those aren't like as quantifiable. you know. Um,
And especially with comics, you can't really it's hard to quantify that too because sometimes it's like, okay, are we gonna judge this on its art and its story
mhm.
together, or are we judging it just like on story essentially? And maybe the art
Yeah,
is like there's so many things you could rebalance that with. And
yeah,
I mean,
and
especially 7 pages for a writer versus 7 pages for an artist. And when you talk about workload, like that's a different workload. Like no matter
oh
no
yeah,
matter
I
what,
mean it's like I don't like any of like the people working for DC, any of the big names working for DC, like clearly they're writing like 7 titles or something
Yeah,
like that. Like they like Rick Remender. I don't know how many projects he like at one time. How many projects he probably had like 10 projects at one time. And like to me, there's no artist who
that's
is
true.
coming close to doing 10 things at a time. Like, and so it's like it's clear to me which one takes the longer, like is the more time wise, time taking amount of work. Because I think
What's the
like
most
now,
amount you've done at once? Like, how many projects have you done simultaneously?
uh, um, I'm always working on at least two, but they're at very different speeds.
Mhm.
Like I'll be working on sort of my own thing all the time, but that's always sort of like a back burner thing. And so I'll be doing like Miss Truesdale and the Rise of Man. That's like my job, and that's like shooting for a page a day of production on that. And then my personal stuff is whatever I can get done. So I'll be like working on those, but that's really about the max. Sometimes it might hit three. Um, if I When I think back to before I had a kid, like I'm like, wow, you wasted so much time. And that because now it's just like, yeah, I'm not taking on a third project. Like, my daughter woke up early today, and that was the start of my day. Like that was the 3 hours of my morning was doing with my daughter and getting her to school. And it's just like I feel it with like I'm like I just remember, and it's like because literally like I spent 3 hours like from 6 to about 9:30 getting my daughter like the
Oh, man.
morning routine with my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, that used to be the morning routine when I did not have a child. Was it me waking up, taking a shower, eating breakfast, done. Like, and like it could be done in 30 minutes, and it's just like, yeah, those hours are gone. So yeah, I don't know what I was doing, staying up to date on movies, I think,
I
and
feel
now
that.
I'm
You're just like,
uh
I had so much time. I don't know what happened, and now I'm
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
"Oh, man, this is
Well, I
I
mean,
miss being young."
yeah, I'm happy with the age I am, but like I definitely see that time. And
Mhm.
if I had time, if I had time, I could care about the Academy Awards, but like I don't have time. I think I saw two of the movies. That's it.
I feel that. I saw one battle after another and Sinners, so I was like, "Oh, I'm caught up. Cool.
Those are the
Sweet."
two.
That's yeah,
those
yeah, that
are
was
the
it.
two I saw. The rest of them I was like never heard of it.
I feel that though. I find with me running Apollo City Comics and doing CWS stuff, I realized my
Mhm.
projects were going on the back burner, so I wrote them all down, and I have like 9 projects that were started up that like kind of just didn't get enough to the finish line, and then I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
but 7 of these are writing projects. That is cool."
Mhm.
2 of them I'm
Yeah.
drawing, and I was like, "Okay, that I'm capped then. I could do this much writing, and this I can't add any more drawing stuff though." And then I have
Yeah.
the year booked out with stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool," because I have 2 drawing projects at the same time all year, and that's
Yeah.
all I need. But I could do 6 writing projects if I just alternate my days, and then I'll be
Yeah.
fine, I'll catch up eventually.
Yeah. 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 I find I also I find for myself, um, I don't think it's strange, but like, like inertia is a key thing. And so if I haven't worked on anything in 2 weeks, that's really bad for that thing. Like
Mhm.
that, like if this project has stalled, it's like, oh, it's really hard to start back up again. And so like two, I can sort of be consistent and like have like a daily sort of interaction with. Once it gets to three and like there starts being like gaps, the third one generally falls off.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yeah, especially consistency with styles or what's going on with certain themes
yeah,
or
yeah,
approaches to different books. Or like
mhm,
you said, tool utilization, just keeping track of,
yeah.
like, keeping that vibe consistent when you're
Oh
going back and
yeah,
forth.
like yeah, yeah. As a, like remembering. Sometimes for me, it's like I feel like I used to like experiment with grids and try different grids, and now it's like um I'll still do it, but if it's more like a job, it's like don't get cute. Just like do this one. You know what that size is. You know how to like how it will shrink to correct size. Like you're not gonna have to be doing like any weird math. Like just do one. Because you can.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like because I'm obsessed with the grid, it's like, oh, I want these mathematical relationships, and it's like, so the live area on the page will change, you know,
Mhm.
depending, like Man's Best was drawn on roughly a 3 by 5 grid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so like with sometimes I break those panels in half, but basically it was 9 panels, 9 inches wide, uh, 15, is that right? Yeah, 15 inches long. But then like Drome was drawn on a 35 panel grid. That's 5 by
Mhm.
7. And so that's 10 inches wide by 14 inches. Like, so like there's like just this like measuring out. And it's like, if I'm just working on it, it's like, don't think too much
Don't kill
about it.
yourself.
Just go with one, and that way you will not forget and draw something at the wrong dimensions. This
I
is
feel like
this is solely my problem, I think.
you
Um,
always throw in 1 or 2 cool pages no matter it's like, the fans are gonna wait for that, like, bombastic page too, you know what I mean? And it's kind of I feel like that's a lot of reason why artists pick up your books too, because 'cause they're looking for what's he gonna do next in this book, and what's gonna be the crazy panel layout, and I think all of us kinda get attracted to that, and it's like, as long as we get that once, then we're, like, happy. We just gotta, like, throw the bone there.
yeah, yeah, it's something I like to do. It's fun, to do like a crazy layout. I feel I feel like I like working with a writer. It's a little bit harder because um, it's like I
Yeah,
don't want to like force, like like I don't want to try and force the comic to be something it isn't. So it's more of a balance, um,
has a writer ever given
to
you a
keep it.
page like that? Like, "I want you to do 35 panels in this one. This is what I know you do." Like,
No, 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 nobody's. I think w- when writers have sort of wanted me to do something, they generally just don't write much. Like they'll just be like, you just
do
you
your
just
thing.
do your thing, like because I think it's like I think with like the more like the weirder layouts or the ones that are the more complicated, I feel like everybody realizes like you can't really write that. Like you can't like type that out because it doesn't, and like I'm the one doing it. It's like I don't write it. Like
Yeah.
I sit down with a sketchbook and like map and
Mhm.
like and move panels around to make things happen, or I have an idea for how a page could work visually, and then like play with it until it actually does work. Um, and so I think people realize like that it's not a writing way of working. It's not text based.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's really just like you gotta know from eagle eye above where stuff is going
Yeah,
before you're just like panel 17. This is what's gonna it's just ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. I think I feel like any artist would be angry if they saw panel 17 in a script. They'd be like, "What is this script?" Mm,
Uh, I love it. Dude, Jesse, thank you. We hit our hour right
yeah.
now. And dude, this has
Oh,
been such
cool.
a fun conversation. And
Yeah, this
just
has
so
been great.
insightful. It felt like one of your pages. It felt like we laid out all 35 panels and filled it in with like just random
Yeah.
stuff the whole time. But super insightful. Do you want to give any shout outs? Let us know if you're working on anything coming out, any events coming up?
Yeah, I think the last issue of Miss Tuesday on the Rise of Man is coming out next week, 2 weeks. I forget, but soon. And then it'll be collected later. Um, I'll be at I think the next event will actually be that free comic book day at Four Color Fantasy.
Cool.
And yeah, I've got comics. I've been trying to get back into self-publishing a little bit. And so I did a book called Panda Delivery Service. Actually, Comics Wellspring did the printing on that. And I have that on my Etsy store, which is just Shop Lonergan. Um, and that's like a fun sort of surreal panda
Yeah,
panda
it's a
adventure.
blast.
Um, yeah, yeah, that's about it right now. Um,
Love it, dude. Yeah, no, I'm super excited to hang out in May. It's gonna be a good
yeah.
time. For Four Colors always a blast, and it gets so busy on Free Comic Book Day. I
Oh
I
yeah.
think I did it once for Free Comic Book Day. Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it was good to get there a few minutes early because I get a line out the door right
Yeah, yeah. I
away.
think I'll
It's
be coming in the
insane.
night before.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. It'll
so
it'll
yeah,
be
I'll be
it'll be
there
cool.
early.
We'll get some food after. But dude, thank
Yeah.
you so much, man. This has been
Oh,
great.
thank
We'll
you. It
talk
was
more soon.
great talking.
Uh,
Yeah.
and for all of our watchers, thank you for tuning in today. This has been a great convo, and I've been hearing this rain and wind outside my window. So if I look scared at any point, I promise it's because of that. But this
I've been
week,
hearing my daughter scream.
yeah, just the fears
She's
all
upset
around.
about something. So,
But we have Spooning this Thursday. We have tons of new guests. We have a couple new creators coming on as well. And then next Monday, we're interviewing Adam Lema and Manny Gomez to talk about Relic Hunter #2. And then we have Devin Whitlock after that the following Monday. And I believe we're covering Zelda Awards after that. So super, super exciting. Keep up with the print shop happening every other Tuesday. So not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. And that's about it right now. Thank you all so much for hanging. Jesse, always a good time.
oh, thank you.
And we'll